When you do something based on emotion and you get it right and it does well, do you start to believe your own predictive powers?
Well, it could be your biggest enemy or your worst enemy in the end, because you start to think, wow, I can do this. And that happened to me when I first started as an investment advisor. I bought some shares of a company named Placer Dome, and it went up $2, and I thought, hey, I can do this.
I'm good.
And then 6 months later, I lost a lot of money doing these crazy things, and it was all based on hunches and emotions.
All right, so let's talk about the syndrome out there, sexy stock. I'm going to say it 3 times fast. Sexy stock syndrome. You know, some names are out there. People think it's a great opportunity. It's a big bet. What do you think?
Well, when a company is newsy, and it's been in the news a lot, there's a lot of emotion tied to the share price. And I think a lot of investors don't understand that. So a case in point might be the marijuana stocks that you see at present. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people look at it and say, wow, this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. So what's going to happen is that we better get into these investments as soon as possible. And Bay Street comes up with all kinds of opportunities for you to invest in them. And I think a lot of people haven't done the homework, which is, what type of business is it? What's the valuation of the business? What do they currently do in revenue? Do they generate any cash flow? Is there extra needs for capital? And those kinds of things don't come into play.
They don't always come into play, and that's right, not unless you've actually done your homework on them. So who is worse when it comes to taking the hunch and making the big bet, men or women?
Who do you think?
Men. Let's just carry on then.
Right. Men generally, especially higher income earners.
Now, why is that?
Do terrific. I think what I end up doing is asking pertinent questions. What does the company do? Have you looked at the valuation relative to its peers? Is there hype around it? And there usually is. And when there's lots of hype around it, like, let's say, BlackBerry, maybe 5-6 years ago, where the stock price had reached maybe $150 or $160 a share, and down around 90, there was an insatiable appetite among Canadian investors to buy the shares, and they were citing things they were reading, like patents had tremendous value. Microsoft might buy the company, and they really weren't looking at the hard facts.
Now, is it okay, though, to say, all right, you want to take a big bet and have an emotional play here, take a small amount of money and go ahead. See if you can prove it right, prove it wrong, and then keep your core portfolio?
Well, I think in any investment, I think the best way to make that investment is to scale into it anyways. So if you have a hunch, let's say on BlackBerry, for example, then why not use that hunch to buy a small amount of shares, and as you do more and more research, add to the position as you build, confidence in your investment thesis. But definitely have an investment thesis.
Yeah, that's the fundamental plan. That's your roadmap, right?
Correct.
All right, so we talked about men being a little more emotional, especially those who are high income earners. What about women? Women often get accused of not taking enough risk in their portfolio.
Well, maybe in a lot of cases, women seen their men make too many investment decisions that didn't work out. But I think just in my personal dealings with women, that was part of a survey we did that I wasn't surprised at the findings, because the women I deal with are professional and far more conservative. They don't really want something on a hunch. They want it to be thoroughly researched. They want it to make sense, and it's got to make sense to them on a common sense basis, something that makes them feel like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Whereas men's like, look, a friend of mine said we should be doing this, and I think he's done really well. I'm just going to buy some anyways.
All right, so then, as we get close to wrapping up here, how do you strip the emotion out? How do you sit back and say, okay, that's great, good idea, but let's get back to basics here?
So one of the best ways, and it's something I employ, I keep a financial journal. And the reason I do that is because I keep retesting my thesis on these investments. So if you have a hunch on something, write down the reasons why it would work out and the reasons why it wouldn't work out, just based on the information you have. You'll be surprised when you peel back why you think it might work out, that those reasons don't stand alone. And I find it funny that a lot of us will go out and shop for a whole bunch of information on cameras or stereo equipment or cars. Yet when it comes to investments, we sort of just throw the money in based on a hunch or based on someone else's, recommendation without doing the work. And that's often where a lot of real money goes into.